Jake Giffin Podcast.
Your virtual lab for inside-out transformation into the man God intended you to be.
Here, we use modern psychological concepts and spiritual tools to help you align your mind and machine to dominate your God-given mission. So put your purses down and your excuses away. Here's your coach, Jake Giffin.
Here we are again. Welcome back, man. This is one heck of an exciting year. I'm gonna tell you, I just got done working out, and if you are in any way stressed, distressed, worked up, fearful, whatever's going on in your life, man, a good workout. You should make exercise your number one. Exercise and prayer. Right there, man. You got to teach. You know, when fear kind of comes up, I've had a lot of stuff come up in the last couple months, man. I had one of my top sales guys. He's been with me for a long time. He resigned and took a position somewhere else, which left me shorthanded right before my busy season. And I've had some turnover, lack of work, economic, just weird things happening. Like a few months ago, I was stacked, ready for busy season, ready to grow this thing by, 35% this year. And then as soon as summertime came, the heat came, in one of my businesses, I do termite work. I do termite work in one business. I do coaching and consulting in another business. But in my termite business, the heat is key to success, right? So we were looking to grow 35%. I mean, everything was going well. Everything was popping. And then, I had some key turnover. Some things happened. Guys that came, but they weren't a good fit culturally. They just weren't a good fit. You can tell right away. Or within a couple weeks, at least, you can tell. So we turn them over. But when these things happen, the stress of life, fear, anxiety can creep in. And I'm going to tell you, the fear is a flesh response. We talk a lot about the animal and the spirit on this podcast. We talk a lot about the operational centers of those things. And if you are fearful right now, it's because you're thinking about things from a fleshly standpoint. That's it. Fear is an emotion that arouses at some potential loss or danger. It is a look into the unknown and creating stories that aren't necessarily true, which causes, and anxiety is a form of fear. But fear is a form of fear. I'm afraid I'm going to fail. I'm afraid I'm going to let people down. I'm afraid we're not going to do payroll. I'm afraid that, a company's not going to make it. I'm afraid that my family's not going to be taken care of. I'm afraid of this or afraid of that. Fill in the blank. A lot of you guys listening to this podcast right now are afraid of things. You're scared. And look, and fear manifests itself in a lot of different ways. It manifests itself in insecurity, anger, frustration. If you have a lack of patience for people, or if you get angry when somebody questions you, like I do sometimes, and you lash out, you get mad, that's fear. What is that a fear of? That's a fear potentially that I'm going to be found out, that I don't have the answers. Am I supposed to have the answers? I think I'm supposed to have the answers, but I don't. What happens if they find out I don't have the answers? Am I going to look different in their eyes? Am I going to have a different authority in their thinking? Am I going to have some different perspective from them? Are they going to look at me the same way? Are they going to respect me the same way? That's a fear. Fear manifests itself in outbursts of anger. It manifests itself in any kinds of forms of scarcity. I eat a lot. I eat a lot when I can because I don't know when my next meal's coming. Really? Like really? Like you live in the first world, right? This is United States of America, or you're in Europe, or you're in Australia, you're in some first world country, right? And you're telling me you can't eat whenever you want? We got homeless people here in America that eat better than any other homeless people around the world. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like, is that a real fear? Or is that a fear that rises up from your childhood, just subconsciously reminds you of the times that you didn't have food as a kid? So when you did have food, you ate a lot. Quite frankly, got a little chubby. Maybe you got a little out of shape. That wears on your body. And when your body is under duress, there's some fear that's involved. So now you're a grown ass man and you're sitting around with a giant plate of food going, I need to eat now because I don't know when I'm going to get my last meal. I'm like, dude, you've been eating that same plate of food for the last 15 years. When have you ever gone without a meal? You may decide to face that stress head on and teach your flesh what you want it to behave like. So the way you do that would be to fast and decide, I'm not going to eat for 2 days. Now, for some of you, if I said, set out tomorrow and fast for 2 days and you've had a food addiction, there's going to be a certain amount of panic that arises in your thinking. And when that happens, that should remind you that that area of your life is a concern. That you think too highly about food and its ability to comfort you. And then maybe the reason that you eat so much is a fear of lack. Maybe you're a workaholic and you're just going for it. 14, 16 hours a day. Your family's suffering, your ministries are suffering, everything around you. Your spiritual life is trash because you're working so hard. You grew up without money. And if you stop working, somehow all the money's going to disappear. I get it. But I like what Paul tells Timothy in 2 Timothy 1. And in 2 Timothy 1, verse 7, he says, for God gave us a spirit. Now here's interesting. I'm not going to read the whole passage to you because I'm going to break it down. He gave us a spirit. Here's saying you're a made man. You're made in the image of God. Now, you can say, well, does that mean I'm made in his physical image? Of course not. God doesn't have a body. God is non-corporeal, as the theologians say. God is spirit, and those who worship him need to worship him in spirit and in truth. God has given us, so how are we made? Well, look, we were made on day 6 with the rest of the cattle and land animals. Objectively look at that day for a minute. Objectively look at every land animal on the planet, and well, I'll be damned if we don't resemble each other. We have senses by which to perceive the habitat. We have a function by which to navigate the planet, movement, respiratory systems, endocrine systems, digestive systems, skeletal systems. We have eyes, ears, taste, touch. We have all these. We perceive the world in the same way. You want to see where Darwin was kind of onto something, and what Christians have ignored for so long is that on day 6, God made cattle out of the ground. He made them. He formed them. Okay. Yeah, day 6, he made man. Out of what? Out of the ground. Man's body is animal. It's flesh. It's carnal. It has the same needs. It has the same desires for food, for caloric intake, to gain energy. Where do you gain your energy? You gain your energy from the food that grows from the ground. You digest that food and you fertilize what? The ground. So it grows more food in the ground. Okay. If you can be objective enough, you can see that this habitat is relatively self-sustaining, although God's presence in it sustains it, maintaining what it is. But if no man was around, this cycle would continue. Now, the difference is that you are not your flesh. You are not your flesh. I'm going to say that just one more time. And I know how annoying that is when people do this. You are not your flesh. You are spirit. You have a body. You're the animating force behind the eyes. You are the consciousness. You are the whatever. The body is a machine that operates in this habitat, and you, the spirit, the man, the person, needs to take care of the machine so that the machine can operate at its peak potential here in the habitat and move you around in space and time. Your machine, your body is engineered and suited for this place. When Jesus comes back and we end up in the new kingdom, guess what? We get new bodies. Why? New bodies for the new place. You are spirit. He says it here in 2 Timothy 1, verse 7. For God gave us a spirit, not a fear, not a phobos or phobos. I don't have the Greek in front of me. If I had to guess, I would say it's probably phobos. Omicron, not omega. Maybe English should be P-H-O-B-O. Right, phobos. So it's fear. He hasn't given us a spirit of fear. No, man. Not a spirit of fear, of loss. Because what is fear? Fear is a perceived loss, future loss, or future danger. If you walk around a corner and somebody scares you and you get afraid, what are you afraid of? I'm afraid, I thought I was going to get hurt. That's a fairly normal reaction. That's a normal reaction to somebody threatening your life, even if you didn't think that was, even if it was just pretend. But you don't live in that. You don't have the spirit of fear. You may have experienced fear from time to time if you walk out into the freeway where there's cars doing 80 miles an hour and you're trying to run across it. You should be afraid. Foolish. It's a foolish thing to do, but you should be afraid nonetheless because you're going to die foolishly. He has not given you a spirit of fear. Your spirit is not that of fear. It is not a way of life. It is not a habitual act in which you walk, afraid of all things around every corner. Now pay attention in your life this week. Pay attention in your life to all the places that fear or its relatives show up. Anger, frustration, actual fear, anxiety, outbursts, insecurities. Those things are all fears. Where else does fear show up in your life? He has not given you that spirit. God has not given you that spirit. So where does that spirit, if you have it, then where does it come from? Well, if you worship God in spirit and in truth, and you have a close connection with God, and you are walking in step with God, then there is no fear. What can man do to me? Come at me, bro. What do we got going on here? I will love as much as I can love. I will give as much as I can give and serve as much as I can serve. And look at people as if they are the image of God and serve them as if I'm serving God. And I will trust God to do whatever he wants to do in my life. Now, is that good? Is it perceived, quote unquote, bad? It doesn't matter. Maturity happens when you say, I trust God with everything that I have, with all that I am. He has given me a spirit, not of fear, but of power. Of power. Dunamis. Dynamite. There are certain men you can run into from time to time, and I've only met maybe 2 of them in all my time in this habitat. And I can say that the one man that I remember the most, a cattleman up in Northern California. Large land, built his own house. It was in, home and garden. I mean, it was a beautiful house that he built on a large plot of land where he was a cattleman. He was cowboy of cowboys. The guy was rugged as rugged can be. You know what I'm saying? Like imagine, what's that guy from, I don't know, Yellowstone. I don't know what his name is, but imagine that guy, except he loves Jesus. Man, and I'm going to tell you what, this guy overflowed with the love of Jesus. When you saw him, I just imagine this is what Jesus looks like, man. This dude spends time with the maker. You understand what I'm saying? This guy spends time with the creator of the universe. He is rugged beyond rugged, and he is loving beyond loving, and his spirit is nothing short of what I think Paul is talking about here to Timothy. Powerful. I mean, he is my example, probably for the rest of my life, of what I'm striving to be. Because that is the one man I've ever met. I'm talking pastors now, you guys. I'm talking pastors, I'm talking leaders, I'm talking brothers, I'm talking sisters, I'm talking whoever. I have met, maybe Chuck Smith had that kind of same power. But this guy was special. And that is what when I think of what God is saying here to Timothy, it's saying, I haven't given you a spirit of fear, but of power. Whew. That's what I'm thinking he means, man. Power. Do you have power in your life? Are you experiencing the power over your decisions, over your destiny? Do you know what God has for you? Do you know what you're called to do or called to be? Do you know what you're called to, how you're called to function? Are you wallowing in fear, different forms of fear, or are you in power? Do you have what it takes to be the man God wants you to be? This is power. Walking in step with God and relying on him completely for every form of your life. Man, believe me, I'm not just preaching to you, I'm preaching to myself. This isn't just me talking to you. When I talk to you, I talk to myself. These aren't these passages that I read and I think, oh yeah, I think I've got this mastered. I'm going to give it to you. I give it to you in a way that I'm living it. I use it for my own. Look, this podcast, if for no other reason, my men, this podcast is for me. And I got a great pastor. He speaks into my life, but man, there ain't nothing like it when you read the scriptures and God impresses upon your spirit what he wants you to know. And I think right now in my life, I needed to know. I needed to be reminded, maybe a lot like many of you need to be reminded, that who you are, at the core of who you are, it is not somebody of fear. But you are a powerful man. Pay attention. Here's a challenge for you. This day, today, of the hearing of this podcast, whenever you hear this podcast now, or you guys that hear it in the future, I want you to do this. Pay attention to how you walk. How's your body language today? Walk by somebody on the street today and pay attention to your body language. Are you thinking about, I'm not going to make eye contact? Are you slouching a bit? Are you taking up less space? Right? Pay attention to how much space you take up. I'm not saying being arrogant. Having power is not about being arrogant. But having power is about walking with your head up and your shoulders back. Having power is about realizing where your power resides, coming from God into you, and you have a purpose here on this planet. And if you don't recognize, this is what he's telling you. Shoulders back, head up, comfortable with yourself. You know the problem with men. Here's a problem with men. Same problem women have. Can I share this with you? I think this might hit home. Maybe it's just me, or maybe it's just me, man. You guys could leave comments and you could tell me all day long in the comments that, bro, this is just you. But how am I going to tell you that I go into a crowded space, and I'm a fairly confident guy, but I go into a crowded space, and as I look around, I'm looking for the guys that I think, I'm comparing myself constantly. I'm like, that guy works out. I think I can take him. Hey, if things go bad here, man, I wonder all right. I don't know. This guy looks kind of crazy. He looks like he can handle himself pretty well. I don't think I might not be able to get him, but I think I can get this guy over here. And, if they're buddies, I'm going to have to do right. So I'm like, I don't do this too often, but it's like, you're comparing yourself to other people all the time. Don't do that. Don't do that. There's times when you walk around in a crowd and you're just like, man, if things pop off right now, what am I going to do? Things pop off right now, I'm going to do whatever God calls me to do right at the moment. Are you walking with God, or are you not walking with God? That is the question. Now, if you are separated from God, if your spirit has nothing to do with the Spirit of God, if you are not walking in step, then yeah, you should be afraid. There's predators around every corner, yo. There are people looking to take advantage of you emotionally, financially, physically. There are people everywhere, predators, bathed in the flesh. All they are animals. And if you're not connected, walking in the Spirit of God, of course you're going to be fearful, scared. You ever seen a Christian man? You ever seen a Christian man walking around scared of everything? It is the most frustrating thing I can imagine sometimes. Like, what are you afraid of, man? Ladies, what are you afraid of? Are you afraid this guy's going to come out here and cut your throat? Okay. And? You know what I mean? We fear the man who can kill the body. When Jesus says very clearly, don't fear that guy. Don't fear the guy who can kill the body and can't do anything about your soul. Can't do anything about the spirit. Can't do anything about what God has given you, who you are. That guy can't take away who you are. That guy can't take away the image of God that dwells in you, in which you walk powerfully. He can't take that away. He can take away your life. He can take away your physical, your animal life. He can kill your machine. He can put sugar in the gas tank. He could do stuff. Sure he could. Sure he could. Who cares? Will I try to stop him? Of course. I want to survive just like anybody else, but I'm not going to be afraid of him. What am I going to be afraid of dying? Every great television show that men watch. And right now I'm watching a show called Justified, right? Justified, there's an archetypical character in Justified called Raylan Givens. Now, Raylan is, he's a marshal, U.S. Marshal, deputy marshal, if you want to be specific. And he is a quick draw shooter kind of guy. So the name of the show is Justified. And he shoots people that pull guns on him. And it's justifiable. It's a justifiable killing. But it's one thing I noticed about him, and I'm going to share another guy like him too. There's something about him, that archetypical character, that is bold and comfortable in conflict. And he loses some and he wins some. Same attitude. Just because he loses one fight Doesn't mean he's afraid to get into a fight again. Now, I'm not suggesting you go get into fights. I'm just merely suggesting the archetype of the character is one that has power. On some level, it's as much power as you can have as an animal, right? We have a different kind of power. We have a spirit of power. All right. Another example, this is when I became this man's fan. Now, he's an atheist, or he's an agnostic at least. So don't go throwing stones at me. But I remember during an episode of Fear Factor, this guy, two participants, I think a boyfriend and girlfriend were on there. And they got into a squabble. And he said some nonsense to his girlfriend that was like crazy. And Joe Rogan put the guy in his place. He said, I forget what he said. But when the guy stepped up to Joe Rogan to, try to intimidate him, he was calm as can be. Dude was a calm ocean. You know what I mean? He was an oak. And he could give a rip. And I could tell just from that moment, Joe Rogan was confident in his ability to take this dude. He was confident in his ability to manage the situation. He was confident in who he was. I wonder how many men in a conflict, real or imaginary, cower because you're not confident in who you are. God's given you a spirit, not of fear, but of power. And if that's not enough, you people, and of power and love. Do you imagine you see this picture here? He's given you a spirit. Who you are is one of power and of love. Love under power, power with love. Do you see the difference? Like I am not afraid of man. What can man do to me? But I love the opposition. If you oppose me, I love you none the same. Why? Because Jesus loves you none the same. Because God loves you none the same. You are made in his image, in his likeness, and I will treat you as such. And I will not be afraid of you. And you will not be afraid of me. And if you are a Christian man and I am a Christian man, and I'm standing here in the Spirit of God and who he has made me, then I'm going to have love and I'm going to have power, and I'm going to have power and I'm going to have love. Not that cheesy kind of love. Talking about the self-sacrificial love. The kind of love that says, I've done nothing wrong. I'm going to go to a cross and pay for the sins of the people, of all the people, so they can be reconciled to God, so that their sins can be washed clean. So everything they've done wrong, in all the ways they've behaved contrary to their originally intended purpose, in all the ways they've behaved contrary to the nature of God, in all the ways that they have sinned against God, all those sins are going to be wiped away. All those sins are going to be washed clean. All of them gone. I've done nothing wrong. I'm going to take the cross and I'm going to earn that. I'm going to take their punishment for them. That's what Jesus did. That's the love he's talking about. I give up my will for you. My will is to see you grow. My will is to see you thrive. So how do we do that? We get you connected back to God. That's what Jesus did. That's what we all do. Made men. Bringing people from the darkness into the light where they can have a spirit of power and love. Love and power. That's a two combinations, my guy, right there that you cannot put a price on. Sure, you can have love in fear. That sucks. Or fearful love. That sucks. And just let's nail this down, right? Because love isn't love. The word love is love. Duh. But there are several Greek words for love. I'm not going to break them down. You guys know, most of you guys know what they are. Send me a message if you don't. I'll send you a list. But love isn't love. Real love is real love. Like agape love is agape love. I sacrifice me, my desires for you. I don't think of myself higher than you. I think of everybody else as higher than myself. That's what love is. Power and love. Love and power. Love God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, and your strength, and love your neighbor, each other, as yourself. Oh, I don't really love myself, Jake. I'm really disappointed, and I don't really love myself. You do, bro. Every time you sit down for a second piece of cake, every time you sit down for a second helping of whatever it is that you're eating to comfort yourself. Every time you eat a second pint of ice cream, I say second pint of ice cream because I polish off a pint myself. If I really wanted to double comfort myself, I would eat a second pint, but I don't, right? So this is what I'm talking about. In stressful moments, where do you run? In stressful, fearful moments, where do you go for your comfort? Is it to God? It isn't. So most of you, it isn't. Most of you, it's food, to porn, to anger, to greed, to something else, some other vice, but it's rarely to God. And as a result, you lack power. And as a result, you're living in fear. But you love God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, and your strength, and you love your neighbor as yourself. Oh, my guy. Now that's a recipe for a man that can leave a legacy. That's a recipe for an individual that's going to live a life that is unstoppable, bulletproof. And the last thing that God tells Timothy through Paul here, 2 Timothy 2:7, for God gave us a spirit, not of fear, but of power and love and, yeah, man, self-control. Self-control. Self-control happens to be also in the fruit of the Spirit. So is love. You know when you're walking according to the Spirit God has given you because the results of walking in that Spirit is love. Agape love. Love for God and love for your neighbor. Love is not boastful. It's not arrogant. It doesn't count wrongs. If you want to know what this definition of love means, look at 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Does your love fit that? Where in your definition of love does it fall short in 1 Corinthians 13? So you walk in the Spirit, you walk in step with the Spirit. It's love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, and, yeah, you guessed it, self-control. Some of you guys right now are having a hard time controlling your flesh. Some of you right now are having a hard time with something or several things that occur throughout your day. Some stimulus enters your world and you react. And your reaction has got to be either from the flesh or from the Spirit. And if you react from the flesh, you will get what? You'll get discouragement, dissension, factions. You'll get envying, drunkenness. You'll get all these. The results are going to be disappointment, chaos, and war. Anxiety. Right? These are the results of relying and behaving, reacting in the flesh, in the animal, as an animal would. But you don't have that Spirit. You don't have that. When stimulus comes into your world today, when something happens to you, somebody cuts you off, somebody at work says something or does something, and you react from the Spirit, loving them as the image of God, loving them like you love God, loving them like you love yourself. the results of that in increasing manner is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, and self-mastery. Well, man, hey, when this happens, I automatically react in the flesh. Well, that is not in step with the Spirit. He didn't give you a spirit to walk in self, not control. You're a man that's out of control of his own body. You're a man that's not in control of his own purpose, his own destiny, his own work. You're not a man in control of your own emotions and how you react to every stimulus that happens to you throughout the day. You're not a man that's in control. You are not a man walking in the Spirit. I know what some of you are going to say right now. Well, Jake, nobody's perfect. And I know this. But too many of you guys out there right now, too many of you right now are resting on this idea that nobody's perfect and will never be perfect, and you use it like a crutch. And you've given up even attempting to please God. You've given up even attempting to be a powerful spiritual man. You've given up even the attempt to be loving and caring and kind, walking in the Spirit, reacting in the Spirit, and benefiting from the results of doing so. You're content with living in chaos and having stress and feeling like you're putting money in one pocket and it's all falling out. You're walking uphill both ways to school in the snow. You don't know. Oh, woe is you. If your life is defined by turmoil and chaos and dissension and anger, then somewhere in your mind or your machine or your missions, you're giving in to behaving like an animal, not spirit. When he clearly tells Timothy, you don't have that spirit of fear. And what is contrary to fear? Power, love, self-control. My guys, what do we do with this information? What do we do with this idea that I'm always afraid? Can I just be personal with you for a second? I need to be personal with you a second. So as full disclosure, to unravel, to reveal some hypocrisy, yeah, I get scared a lot. Now, it doesn't always manifest itself in like fear, or like trembling, but it manifests itself in insecurity and it manifests itself in anger. Hey man, nobody knows like we know that a wife can ask you questions that you don't have answers to. And if you feel like you're the kind of guy who should have all the answers because she's relying on you to have all the answers, but you don't have the answers, you know what I'm talking about? It can be, well, I don't want to concern her. I don't want to worry her. I need to have the answers. How come I don't have the answers? I'm an idiot. I don't really know what I'm doing. Oh my gosh, I don't really know what I'm doing. And people are going to find out that I don't even know what I'm doing. Oh my goodness. What am I running a business for? I don't know how to run a business. What's the difference between an S Corp and a C Corp? What's the difference? Look, dude, look. I've been through it all. And at the end of the day, we pursue knowledge and we pursue God and what we know is what we know. And if I don't know enough for you, then that's your problem. This is what I got to tell myself, right? Because I am where I'm supposed to be right now. It was hard times, peaks and valleys for years and years and years, and it will be for years and years and years. And all that time, God is teaching me through the good times and more through the bad times, my own character weaknesses, my own challenges and my own ways that I'm walking like an animal and not like the spirit that he made me. in all the ways he's showing me that here's the crack, man. Here's where you default to animal behavior. And here is where you need to change that behavior to walking in the Spirit. You need to change your reaction to this stimulus that takes you immediately into your flesh, and you need to reprogram yourself to walk in the Spirit. And man, I'm telling you, over the last several years, the tools that he has given me to be able to identify those things and change that is of critical development. So I'm not without hypocrisy here. There are areas in my life where I get fearful, but fascinating enough, I've been able to more and more identify those areas, as subtle as some of them may be. And then I work through this. Now, let me give you quick tips. Just real quick, we got a few minutes left. How do you work through some of that stuff when you identify that you're walking in fear? That when stimulus comes into your life, something happens, somebody says something, somebody does something, and you react fearfully, and the result is chaos. It always is chaos. It's always chaos, war, dissension. That is the result of walking in the flesh. You set your mind on the things of the flesh, you will die. And on your way to death, it will be chaos and misery in the wake. So, how do you identify when things sit? When you outburst in anger, let's say, note it. Write it down or just note it. And make sure that you spend time and you go, okay, Lord, ask God. Look, you have a relationship with God or not? Here's a key. Do you have a relationship with God or not? This is a key. Because if you do, then you hear his voice. If you have that relationship, then you have closeness. You have bold access into his throne room. You can ask him. And you have a relationship in which you can call him Abba Father. You have that relationship. So take this situation to him and ask, where is fear manifesting itself in my life? Why did I behave like this? Where is the root of that fear? Where's the root of that behavior? Why did I react like that? And let him share that with you. Let him answer that question for you. And be conscious of when that's being answered. You may have asked that question this morning to him, and then you turned on this podcast, and maybe this gave you some light. Maybe this is your answer. Maybe somebody like my boy Mel in Oxnard, shout out to Mel, shout out to Dylan, right? Playing that Clash of Clans. I'm on there with you, my man, right? Maybe they're going to intervene in your life. They're going to say something fascinating, and that's going to give you the answer you want. So take it to God. Go, hey, why am I doing it like this? Why am I behaving like this? Why is this my default reaction? Show me. And then turn on your perceptive whatever and eagerly wait for the answer. Look for where the answer comes. He may just tell it to you, or he may show it to you throughout your day. It's important that you identify where the fear is manifesting and where it's rooted, right? Where it's manifesting, and two, where it's rooted. Is it rooted in insecurity? Rooted in scarcity, loss? Is it rooted in your past? Why is this happening? That's a good question. Where is it manifesting? And then where is it rooted? And then play it forward. Does this happen a lot? If it happens a lot, then you know you can predict that it's going to happen today. It's going to happen tomorrow. It's going to happen several times this week. What are you going to do? Commit in your mind. Play it through in your mind. I'm going to go through my day. And at some point, somebody's going to say something stupid, and I'm going to lash out. They're going to ask me a question I don't have an answer to, and I am going to get enraged. Why is that? Because I'm insecure. Okay. What do I need to do when I hear that question? What do I need to do when I hear my phone ring? What do I do when I know the person on the other end who is calling me is going to ask me something that is going to irritate the crap out of me? What am I going to do? I'm going to put a little bit of space. I'm going to take a deep breath. Because notice, when you initially start thinking about the stress, your breathing gets really shallow. You get probably a little hunched over and a little tight. And that causes more anxiety because what your body needs is oxygen that you're depriving it of. So you need to take a deep breath. Put your shoulders back. Look through your own eyes, man. Be aware. Be as they say, associated to the moment. All right, this is going to happen. Take a deep breath. What you need to do is put a little space between the time the stimulus happens, the question happens, and your response. Right? In your mind, as you're walking through it, this is just imaginary now. You're going to walk through it. You're going to imagine the phone ringing with the person on the other end who's going to make you mad. You know they're going to make you mad. So then you see the name, hear the phone number, or hear the phone ring, see the name, and then go, take your deep breath. Enter your phone. Hey, Jim, how are you? Good. Hey, what's the stop loss on the blah, 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 blah. And you're like, okay, that. Now play through how you want to react. That's a great question, Jim. I don't have that answer right now. If you don't mind, I'll look it up. I'll get back to you. Is that okay? Awesome. Cool beans. See ya. However you want to react, use a model if you need to. If you know somebody who handles those situations well, think about them doing the situation. How do they react? And then step into the way that they react and do it like they would. And how they do it. Are they self-confident? They don't, right? So this is a way. Identify where it arrives in your world. What happens in your time when you jump into the flesh? Where is it rooted? In insecurity and fear? Of course, right? Somewhere. And then how would you rather react to it? And play that scenario out before it actually happens. And then finally commit to doing it just like you imagined. It will be hard at first, but eventually, if you do that enough, in enough situations, through enough time, rehearse it, execute it. Rehearse it, execute it. You do that enough, that'll become your natural reaction. You will no longer have the fear or the anger or the dissension that comes from that kind of interaction. The way you react to stimulus right now is a combination of events that happens when you hear somebody ask you a question or somebody cuts you off in the freeway. There's a series of thoughts and emotions that occur that you're not even familiar with because it happens so fast. So figure out what the combination of events is that gets you mad, and then use those similar combination to re-anchor a new response. We do this all the time in our coaching. We do this all the time in NLP. We do it all the time in reprogramming behaviors. People don't want to behave a certain way anymore. They want to behave a better way. We give them tools all the time to help them do that. So it's possible. Your body is a machine that has been programmed passively. You can reprogram it actively, but you have to embody these passages that talk about what God has given you. Not a spirit of fear, but a spirit of power and love and self-control. So I hope you got a lot out of this. This was me rambling. I really enjoyed doing this. This meant more to me than maybe it meant to you. But leave a comment, leave a review and a comment if this was beneficial to you. That really takes 2 minutes of your time and it helps me out a whole lot. And until next time.
If you enjoyed this show, make sure to subscribe and leave a review. For more information about Jake, log on to jakegiffin.com and find him on all social media platforms.
Until next time, peace and power be yours.